She was exhausted, just finished a 12-hour hospital shift, rushing to catch a cheap flight to Florida. But one wrong turn in the airport changed everything. Instead of boarding her plane, she stepped onto a private jet. Destination, not Orlando, but Paris. And the man waiting inside? A billionaire with his own reasons for escaping the world. What happens when a struggling nurse and a stranger from two different worlds are thrown together by accident? And fate won't let go? If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and tell us in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? Now let's jump into the story. Claire Dawson rubbed her tired eyes as she hurried through the crowded airport. Her nurse's badge was still clipped to her duffel bag, and her sneakers squeaked softly against the shiny floor. She glanced at her phone for the 5th time in 2 minutes. Her flight was boarding soon. If she didn't move faster, she would miss it. It had been a long night. Her shift at St. Mary's Hospital had stretched into 12 chaotic hours. 2 emergencies, 3 code blues, and no breaks. She'd barely had time to shower, change, and grab her bag before rushing to the airport. Gate 14A, she whispered, trying to read the blurred boarding pass on her screen through the haze of exhaustion. This was her first break in almost 3 years. Since her parents had passed away suddenly in a car accident, Claire had taken full responsibility for her younger sister, Lily. She was just 16 now. Claire worked extra shifts, cooked, helped with homework, everything. The idea of taking a weekend trip had felt selfish, but her best friend Molly had convinced her. Just 2 days in Orlando, Molly had said. No hospitals, no bills, just rest, you need it. Now Claire was late. The signs above her head blurred together. She turned down a hallway, confused, and found a small crowd gathered near a sleek glass doorway. A sign above read, "Private Boarding." Claire frowned. This didn't look like Gate 14A. But a woman in a navy blue uniform smiled as she approached. "Ms. Brenner?" the woman asked. "We've been expecting you." Claire opened her mouth. "I think you've got the wrong person." She began. "Please follow me," said a second staff member. "Mr. Mercer is already on board." Claire hesitated, completely thrown off. "Wait, your luggage, miss." Someone took her duffel bag gently before she could stop them. "Hold on, I'm not—" She tried again, but her voice was drowned out by the noise of the jet engines outside. She was too tired to think straight, too polite to push back. And everything was happening so quickly. Before she realized what was going on, she was being guided down a private walkway and onto a jet that looked nothing like the budget airline plane she'd been expecting. The flight attendant opened the door with a friendly smile. Inside, the jet was pure luxury, soft cream-colored seats, polished wood paneling, and a quiet hum of air conditioning that felt like a lullaby. Claire blinked. "Wait," she said again, a little louder this time. "I think I'm on the wrong plane." Uh-oh. Man was seated near the window. He turned at the sound of her voice. He wasn't what she expected. He looked young, maybe in his early 30s, with neatly combed dark hair and a calm, thoughtful face. His eyes were sharp, but not unkind. He studied her as if trying to place her. "You're not Emma Brenner," he said flatly. Claire shook her head. "No, I'm Claire Dawson. I think I followed the wrong signs." The man raised an eyebrow but didn't seem upset. Instead, he gave a small amused smile. "Well," he said, setting down a tablet. "That would explain the jeans and backpack. Emma usually prefers designer luggage." Claire felt her cheeks burn. She was suddenly very aware of her simple outfit and messy ponytail. "I'm so sorry," she said quickly. "I'm supposed to be on a commercial flight to Orlando. I don't even know how this happened." "We've already been cleared for takeoff," the attendant said apologetically. "The runway is active. We can't go back now." Claire's mouth opened, then closed again. Panic started to rise in her chest. "Breathe," the man said gently. "It's okay, accidents happen." "Where is this plane going?" she asked, heart pounding. "Paris," he replied calmly. Her eyes widened. "Paris? France?" He nodded. "I can't go to France," she cried. "I don't have time. I have to go back. My sister's with a neighbor and I have work on Monday." "Relax," he said. offering a bottled water from the table next to him. My name's Julian Mercer. This was supposed to be a quiet weekend away. If you'd like, I can arrange for you to fly home the moment we land. Claire took the water with trembling hands. I don't even have my passport. You're on a private flight, he said. They didn't check? Claire thought hard. Her passport was in her bag. She had packed it just in case. They called me Ms. Brenner. I tried to say something, but everything happened so fast. Julian chuckled. You accidentally slipped through a multi-million-dollar security system. That's almost impressive. Claire let out a nervous laugh. This is insane. Yes, Julian agreed. But it's also kind of interesting. As the jet lifted into the sky, Claire sank into a leather seat, too stunned to argue. Her head spun, her body heavy with fatigue. A stranger. A jet. A wrong gate. And now she was flying to Paris. Claire stared out the window as the private jet descended. The lights of Paris sparkled below, casting golden reflections on the clouds. It was beautiful, too beautiful to feel real. Yet there she was, sitting on a luxury jet next to a man she didn't know, flying to a place she never meant to go. We'll be landing in about 10 minutes, Julian said, glancing at her with a small smile. Still doing okay? Claire nodded, though her mind was racing. I still can't believe this is happening. Honestly, he replied, neither can I. The plane touched down smoothly at a private terminal, far away from the crowded gates and noisy travelers. A black car waited on the tarmac, engine humming quietly. A driver in a gray suit opened the door as they approached. I've arranged a room for you, Julian said as they climbed in. You don't have to stay, of course. I'll cover your return flight whenever you're ready. Claire turned to him, her voice soft. Thank you. You didn't have to do all this. It's the least I can do after kidnapping you across the ocean, he said. And for the first time she laughed. The hotel they arrived at looked more like a palace than a place to sleep. Tall doors, glowing chandeliers, and soft music greeted them as they walked through the lobby. A man behind. The desk handed Julian 2 room keys. I asked them to place us on the same floor, he explained quickly, just so it's easy to reach me if you need anything. Claire's room was breathtaking. Soft cream walls, a balcony overlooking the city, and a bed so big she could barely see the edges. She placed her bag down carefully, afraid to touch anything. A knock at the door made her jump. She opened it to find a small cart of food: cheese, bread, fruit, and tea. Compliments of Mr. Mercer, the server said with a bow. After a quick shower, Claire sat by the window wrapped in the hotel robe, picking at the food and watching the Eiffel Tower sparkle in the distance. The city looked like a dream. And yet, the knot in her stomach hadn't loosened. Her phone buzzed. It was Julian. Julian, if you'd like, I'd be happy to show you around a little tomorrow. No pressure. Claire, thank you. Maybe just a walk. I leave Sunday night. Julian. Perfect. Sleep well, Claire. That night she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering how everything had changed in just a few hours. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the curtains. Claire woke slowly, surprised by how well she'd slept. After getting dressed in the same jeans and sweater from the flight, she met Julian in the lobby. He looked different in the daylight, less polished, more relaxed. Like a man enjoying a break from the world. Ready to see the real Paris, he asked. They walked through quiet streets far from the tourist-filled landmarks. Julian pointed out small cafes, local bakeries, and old buildings with tiny balconies full of flowers. I used to live here after college, he said. Before everything got big. Before your company? Claire asked. He nodded. Yeah, it started as a 2-man project in a dorm room. Now there are over 2,000 employees. She glanced at him. Do you miss when it was smaller? Sometimes, he admitted. It felt more personal. Now it's meetings, investors, headlines, lots of noise. Claire listened, surprised by how open he was being. It felt easy talking to him. They stopped at a small cafe where the owner greeted Julian in French and led them to a corner table. You really did live here, Claire said, smiling. For 3 years. I haven't been back since... He paused. Since my business partner passed away. She looked at him gently. I'm sorry. His name was Eli, Julian said quietly. We built everything together. When he died, it didn't feel the same anymore. Claire understood that kind of loss. I lost my parents 2 years ago. Drunk driver. My sister was only 14. They sat in silence for a moment. Not awkward, just full of shared understanding. After coffee and warm croissants, they wandered through a local park. Children played on swings. An old couple fed pigeons. Paris didn't feel like a fantasy anymore. It felt real, soft, slow. This is the first time I've relaxed in months, Claire admitted. Same here, Julian said. Maybe you getting on the wrong plane was the universe's idea of a break for both of us. Claire looked at him, unsure what to say. She wasn't used to kindness without strings. She wasn't used to someone caring about how she felt. As the sun began to set, they stood on a bridge overlooking the river. The wind was cool, the lights just beginning to glow. Thank you, Claire said. For today, for not making this feel weird. Julian smiled. It's not weird. It's unexpected. Very, she agreed. He hesitated. Would you consider staying just one more day? I'd like to show you something. Claire's first instinct was to say no. She had work, responsibilities, and Lily back home. But for the first time in years, she felt like something good had chosen her. Without her asking. Maybe one more day, she said softly. Julian's smile grew. I'll take that as a yes. And as they walked back through the glowing streets, Paris no longer felt like a city of strangers. It felt like the beginning of something unexpected. The next morning, Claire found herself standing at the edge of a garden she never expected to see. Tall hedges lined the path, and soft petals from nearby cherry trees drifted through the air like spring snow. Birds chirped in the distance. Everything was still. Julian stood beside her, holding a paper bag with 2 croissants and a bottle of sparkling water. This is my favorite place in all of France, he said. I wanted you to see it before the world wakes up. I can see why, Claire replied. It's peaceful. They walked slowly along the path, the silence between them comfortable. Claire had planned to leave Paris the night before, but when Julian asked her to stay just one more day, something in her said yes before she had time to overthink it. Now here she was, on a quiet morning in the French countryside, eating breakfast, with a man who felt less like a stranger than most people back home. How do you even find a place like this? Claire asked. Julian smiled. Eli found it. My business partner. We used to come here to clear our heads. He believed nature made everything easier to understand. Claire nodded. He sounds like someone you miss. Every day, Julian said softly. He was the heart of our work. I handled the numbers. He handled the vision. Losing someone like that, it changes everything. It does. They stopped near a stone bench. Julian motioned for Claire to sit. She did, and he sat beside her. Do you ever feel like you're living someone else's life? Claire asked suddenly. Like you're just filling space until you remember who you used to be? Julian looked at her. All the time, she sighed. I used to dream of traveling, of becoming a nurse in a big city, of having adventures. But life didn't go the way I thought. It rarely does, he replied. After my parents died, I didn't have a choice. Lily was just a kid. I became her guardian, her everything. Suddenly it wasn't about dreams, it was about keeping the lights on, about making sure she was okay. And you made sure, Julian said. That matters. I don't regret it, Claire said. Not really. But sometimes I wonder what might have been, who I might have become. Julian was quiet for a moment. Maybe this weekend is reminding you of that part of yourself. Maybe, she said, looking out over the field of wildflowers just beyond the garden wall. Or maybe it's just a borrowed moment, something beautiful I'll remember when I'm back home trying to pay the electric bill. Or, Julian said carefully, it's the beginning of something else. She looked at him, unsure of how to answer. They spent the rest of the day at Julian's countryside home. It wasn't what Claire expected from someone so wealthy. It was simple, built of stone and wood, with wide windows and a small fireplace. No fancy decor, just warmth. Julian made lunch, fresh pasta with tomatoes and herbs from the garden. Claire laughed watching him cook. He looked completely out of place in the kitchen, but somehow also right at home. "I haven't had a proper home-cooked meal in months," she said, taking a bite. "Thank you." "You're welcome," he replied, a bit sheepishly. After lunch, they sat in the backyard on a worn bench, watching the clouds drift across the sky. "I forgot how nice it is to do nothing," Claire said. "Doing nothing is underrated," Julian replied with a grin. They talked for hours, about work, family, regrets, and little moments that had shaped who they were. Claire told him about her favorite patient, a woman who made her laugh even on her worst days. Julian shared stories about college, about building a company out of nothing but an idea and late-night coffee. "Do you miss it?" Claire asked. "The excitement of starting something new?" Julian thought about it. "Sometimes, but the pressure grew louder than the purpose." She nodded, understanding. "That's what life feels like lately. Just noise." "Maybe we both needed the quiet," he said. Evening came slowly. Julian lit a small fire as the wind picked up. They wrapped themselves in blankets, sipping tea under the fading light. Claire couldn't remember the last time she had felt this calm. Or this scene. "You look different," Julian said quietly. "How so?" "Lighter," he said. "Like a weight's been lifted?" "Maybe it has," Claire whispered. "Maybe just for today." They fell into silence again, but this time it felt like something whole, not empty. Claire glanced at him. "I have to leave tomorrow." "I know," Julian said. "This isn't my life," she added. "This house, this quiet. It's not real for me." "What if it could be?" he asked gently. Claire didn't answer. She couldn't. Not yet. But that night, as she lay in a guest room with the window cracked open and the sound of crickets in the air, she let herself dream. Not of going back, but of the person she used to be. The one who wanted more. And maybe, just maybe, she wasn't done becoming her. Morning arrived with soft golden light streaming through the tall windows of Julian's countryside home. Claire opened her eyes slowly, feeling the weight of the day settle on her chest. It was time to go back. She sat up in the guest bed, pulling the blanket around her shoulders. Outside, the garden was quiet. The flowers seemed to nod gently in the breeze as if wishing her goodbye. Downstairs, the smell of coffee led her to the kitchen. Julian was already there, wearing a soft gray sweater and holding 2 mugs. "Good morning," he said, offering one to her. "I figured we could sit outside for a bit before we head to the airport." Claire nodded, taking the mug with both hands. "Thanks." They sat on the back steps, sipping in silence. Claire watched a pair of birds chase each other through the trees. "Feels like the last page of a book," she said quietly. "Or the start of a new chapter," Julian replied. She gave him a small smile but didn't say anything. Her heart was full and heavy at the same time. "I meant what I said yesterday," he continued. "This doesn't have to end here." "Julian," she began, then stopped. She needed to say this right. "This time with you, it's been unexpected. Beautiful. But my life is in Pennsylvania. My sister, my job. I can't just walk away from it." "I'm not asking you to," he said gently. "But what if we found a way to stay in each other's lives, even if we're in different places?" She looked at him. "You think we can do that?" "I think it's worth trying." Claire thought of Lily, of her tiny apartment, of the hospital's long fluorescent halls, and then she thought of the quiet moments here, the long talks, the laughter, the feeling of being fully seen. "Okay," she said finally. "We try." The drive to the airport felt shorter than she expected. They barely spoke, but their silence was filled with a quiet kind of understanding. At the private terminal, a staff member took Claire's small bag and offered to escort her to security. "Wait," Julian said, pulling something from his coat pocket. It was a small box wrapped in brown paper. "What's this?" she asked. Just something to remind you this wasn't a dream, he said. She opened the box carefully. Inside was a delicate silver necklace with a tiny charm, a little compass. So you always know your way, he said, a little shy now. Claire swallowed the lump in her throat. Thank you. It's perfect. They stood there a moment longer, not ready to say goodbye. I'll call you when I land, she said. I'll be waiting, he replied. They hugged. Tight, warm, familiar. She didn't want to let go, but she did. And then she turned, walked through the doors, and left France behind. Back home, life returned quickly. Her apartment looked smaller than before. Lily had left a note on the fridge. Missed you. Glad you had fun. Tell me everything later. Claire went back to work, back to early mornings and late nights. But something had shifted inside her. She was more patient with people, more present. Even her coworkers noticed. You look different, her friend Megan said during a lunch break. Paris will do that to you, Claire replied, smiling. Julian kept his word. They talked every day, sometimes just 5-minute calls, sometimes long messages full of silly stories or thoughtful questions. He sent her photos of his garden. She sent him selfies from her break room. It wasn't perfect. Some days felt harder than others. The distance was real. Their lives were still different. But somehow, it didn't feel impossible. 3 weeks later, Claire opened her mailbox to find an envelope with her name in careful handwriting. Inside was a plane ticket, a weekend trip, not to Paris, but to a small town in Maine. Julian's note read, I found a cabin near the coast. I thought we could meet halfway this time. She laughed. Not because it was silly, but because it felt so perfectly like him. She showed the ticket to Lily that evening. Her sister looked at it, then at her. You're really doing this, Lily said, smiling. I think I am. You deserve it, Lily added. And honestly, it's about time. Claire boarded her flight that Friday with a heart full of nerves and hope. She wore the necklace with the tiny compass, her fingers touching it every so often. When she arrived, Julian was there waiting at the small airport, leaning casually against a rental car, a bouquet of wildflowers in his hands. He smiled the moment he saw her. Still sure about this? He asked. Claire didn't hesitate. Yes, she said. Absolutely. They drove to the cabin, the ocean nearby, the sky soft with dusk. The world felt wide again, full of possibilities. As they walked along the quiet beach that evening, their hands brushing, then clasping, Claire realized something. This wasn't just a borrowed day anymore. This was her life. And maybe, just maybe, it was the beginning of something real.